When I was in Albury for the 200-year anniversary of when Hume and Hovell reached the Millawa, the Murray River, I made for me one of the most significant connections on my journey when I met Wiradjuri man Darren Wighton. Darren and I sat down by the banks of the river and had a yarn. Darren shared his knowledge and his wisdom. In this video, enjoy the serenity of the beautiful river in the background and the ducks coasting on the current in the river. I hope you take something away from what Darren has to share about culture and connection and caring for country. I certainly learnt a lot from Darren. I'm here on the banks of the Millawa, the Murray River, with Darren Wighton. Local artist, Wiradjuri man, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, yung ngati Wiradjuri gipir. So my name's Darren Wighton. I'm from Condobolin on the Lachlan River, Wiradjuri from central New South Wales. Been living here in Albury for around 25-30 years, and quite involved in the local community from education, pastoral care and community development.
Darren and I met the other day. Darren was doing a Welcome to Country at the Hovell Tree the other day on the 200 commemoration of the Hume and Hovell expedition reaching the Millawa, and we have had a chat and decided to do a video together because I heard Darren explain Yindyamarra. Is that how, have I said it right? And I just love the meaning of that word, a Wiradjuri word. Darren, would you please describe that word?
Yeah, Yindyamarra is a word in Wiradjuri language, but I think it's more, or better described as a way of thinking and a way of life. So Yindyamarra means 5 things: respect, honour, being patient, polite and going slow. And the fact that the part of that word, because we break it down linguistically, is the word mara at the end of that word, Yindyamarra, and mara is a hand, it's a word for hand, and there's 5 points, 5 on your hand, and so it's quite easy to remember, and we use it for teaching the kids. But more than just being a word for respect, it means so much more than that. It's a way of thinking, and it means respecting and honouring and the land you're on, one another, your neighbours, the Creator, all of that sort of connection together, whether it's person to person, whether it's culturally speaking, or whether it's about connecting to the land and this river, the Millawa here at Albury, the Murray. Connection is really big within lots of cultures, and when people are disconnected, we often find that that's when they're not feeling that sense of purpose and direction and motivation in life. And so we really encourage people to find themselves and attach and connect to their culture. We often use language to do that, and stories. As Australians, we live inside of stories. We love it. I sort of grew up with my grandparents, and my grandfather was one of the best yarn tellers out at Condobolin in the central west on the Lachlan, and I think I still carry some of that in just being able to tell stories and yarn together and connect with people.
And that's I love the idea of telling stories, and that is what history is and learning about. That's how I best learn, is through story. Because for me, and I think for all people, if you can imagine something and see a picture and a story in your head, then you'll remember it. And that was really how Aboriginal people understood the landscape and how to travel through the landscape, was all the stories.
Yeah. And because they have an oral culture, then you often find that they're going to have to tell a story. Then at some stage in their life, they will visit the place where that story took place. They will see the artwork, the rock, the site, and then once they learn that, then they will do the song and then a dance. And so they kind of learn it in multiple ways.
Yeah,
and then it stays with them, because then they'll have the responsibility to be the teller of that story and to carry it. And so because we have an oral culture, it means that it's not recorded, you can't look it up, it's not written down. You actually have to remember it. And so we remember things in different ways: stories, place, art, song, dance.
Yep.
And then that way it stays strong. And we have storytellers, and then we also have guardians of a story, and they sit with the storytellers to make sure they get it all right, because otherwise you end up with a 10,000-year-old version of Whispers, the Whispers game, where every time you share it, it gets a little bit different, and then it's all changed. And so in order to keep that accuracy in oral culture, they have to have guardians to make sure they retell that story correctly. Yeah.
We're just getting visited by a beautiful bird here. Some masked lapwings. I'm not sure what that bird is.
We get quite a few here, and then also out at Wonga we get quite a few blue wrens, and they're just amazing.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Wonderful little birds. You got Tommy coming along. You got a white cockatoo just landed up in here, getting a bit boisterous. Yeah, the kookaburra's over here.
What I want to know, Darren, is there any platypus around here? Because I've been looking for platypus and haven't found one yet.
Well, because this is going out to the public, no, there isn't.
Okay.
But
You'll tell me later.
But absolutely there is.
Yeah.
And that tells me that while some things look bleak and the river's not as clean as it used to be, or it's not as cared for as it used to be, the fact that we still have platypus here at Albury means that we're doing something right, or the river's managing to survive despite all the use and abuse that we've created for this river. I've sat in another place just a little further north from here, the river, and just reflecting on the water and soaking up the flowing stream and what it does for your mental health and well-being, and it's wonderful, and I encourage you to do it. And then one day I was just sort of really thinking about the week ahead and a lot of grief and loss and stuff that we've been through, and then out of nowhere I hear this splash and I thought it was a duck, and it was just right sort of in the shallows near my feet, and I've done a double take and it was a platypus, and it just blew me away.
Yeah.
That I'd seen it, I'd shared that moment.
Yep.
And as soon as I reached for my phone,
Yep.
as you do,
Gone.
he's gone.
Yeah.
So it was a personal moment that wasn't meant to be recorded, but
Yeah.
it stays in the memory completely, and I've painted it and
yeah.
continue to have that connection, and it's a reminder that even while things look bleak under the surface, we're still here, we're still going ahead, things are okay, and
Yep.
it's just, and that for my mental health is great.
Yeah, that I agree with you. When you see a platypus and frogs, like there are certain species that are indicators of a healthy river, and a platypus is definitely one of them. And Darren was saying there were willow trees along this bank, and that they've been removed because they were quite detrimental to platypus habitat. So obviously that's had a positive impact. So that's good. Darren's also an artist and has sculptures on display in the Yinjimarra Sculpture Walk. If you're ever in Albury, please go and see the Yinjimarra Sculpture Walk. And even just anywhere along the Murray is a beautiful place to visit and connect with country. And there's another sculpture that Darren made that's just over behind us at the cafe here. And it's a did you call it a memorial pole?
Yeah, memorial pole.
Yeah.
Used as a way to remember people of notoriety. So in Wiradjuri culture, someone who, like a chief or someone of notoriety, an elder, would be buried under a mound, and then the nearest tree nearby, or a pole erected if there were no trees, would have their own markings carved on it, a little bit like a headstone.
Yeah.
And so these are uniquely Wiradjuri for our area, and a lot of these are no longer standing or living, and so we have artist sketches and photographs that we can refer to, and we continue that tradition. And so the pole that's erected behind us as a memorial pole stands here in this place on the river as a memorial to the local Wiradjuri people, dating back to the time of exploration.
Yeah.
And so we've got this sense of connection to this place, and that's a shared connection now in the stuff with Hume and Hovell and the commemorations of that, as well as the Indigenous groups. And the whole concept really comes about by things like reconciliation and the concept of walking together.
Yep.
And listening and learning one another's story and moving together in a shared space. My wife often says, let's live in a country that we all live in. So it's important to be able to share and reflect one with another in the space that we all call home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. I really like it here. The river is a beautiful place that everybody comes to visit regularly. I see people walking their dogs, the dogs jumping in and having a swim, people jumping in and having a swim. Apparently it's freezing cold water in there, so Darren's told me if ever you're hot in Albury, just jump in the river.
Yeah, no, it's very cold water here. We're at the top end of the Murray, so it's very fresh and very cold. But the better fish are down south, further down the Murray. So yeah,
Okay.
I've got family down further on the Murray, and the fishing's great.
Yeah, okay. I love what you're doing here. It sounds like you're having a really positive impact through everything you do.
Yeah, my wife and I have lived here for going on 20 years now. The kids are raised here and then gone to school and have now finished school, but we haven't had any urge to move anywhere else. Still calling Albury home. We connected not far from Melbourne to Sydney, and Albury seems to have it all with the river and the mountains and the bush and the city. Everything's kind of here. The only thing that's not here is a beach, but you can't have it all. Yeah, special place, and it just feels really good to be here on Wiradjuri country. My wife's learnt some Wiradjuri language, being a Noongar from Perth.
Yeah.
So she's really embraced the country and the culture over here.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably our go-to message with the work that my wife and I do is connection, really important, and we mentioned that, but also caring for country, because I know how much Australians love Australia. And our throwaway phrase is sort of like, if you love it, then look after it. And I quote my grandmother to say, like many grandmothers, say you leave it better than you found it. Whatever you're doing, you leave it better than you found it. And so I really encourage other Aussies to love the country. They do.
Yep.
So let's look after it. The uniqueness of this land and this landscape is awesome and amazing, and it won't stay that way if we don't care for it. And that's a message, that's an ancient message for all of our people, Wiradjuri included, is the caring for country as a person, but as something that's valuable, something that we love and care for, and so we look after it. And that's our message to all other Australians. Why we do what we do is so that other people will love and care for the country the way we do.
Yeah. Good strong message.
Yeah, no, very good.
No, thanks. Well, Darren, I'm really pleased that I made connection with you the other day, and the welcome to country was beautiful. For me, when I first got to the Murray the other day, I got down to the water and introduced myself to the river and hugged the hovel tree, and that's for me, when I'm close to nature, especially a place like this, that's when I'm at my most calm and probably most tuned in, I suppose, as well. And it was great to make that connection on that day, and thank you so much for agreeing to come down and have a yarn and share your knowledge and your wisdom.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Mandangul, thank you.
Yeah. Well, how do you say that?
So Mandangul.
Mandangul. Excellent.
Picking up on all the Wiradjuri.
Yeah.